So let's go back to SRSD, or self-regulated strategy development. I'm only here talking to you about it today because it is an evidence-based practice. What does that mean? It means that there are experimental, randomized studies, not just in the United States, but now in over 10 countries, that have shown that when teachers use SRSD as one part of teaching writing in their classrooms, students make impressive gains. There are several organizations that have looked at the research base for SRSD, including over 100 studies, and have determined that SRSD deserves the label evidence-based from grades 2 through 12 and for adults. I'll share just two of them here. SRSD received a rating of strong evidence, the highest rating possible, defined as consistent evidence that the recommended strategies, programs, or practices improve student outcomes for a wide population of students. In other words, there is strong causal and generalizable evidence. In the Institute for Education Studies Practice Guide, Teaching Elementary School Students to be Effective Writing. The same finding occurred in the Practice Guide for Teaching Adolescents to be Effective Writers. A second group I'll mention here is the panel that put together the report Writing Next, Effective Strategies to Improve the Writing of Adolescents in Middle and High Schools, commissioned by the Carnegie Corporation. This is separate from the IES Practice Guide for Adolescents. This group also determined that SRSD has the strongest impact of any researched instructional approach in writing. So, with over 100 studies, what can I tell you in a nutshell about SRSD, what it does, and what you can expect if you use it with your students? First of all, SRSD significantly and meaningfully changes how students with writing problems and their typically achieving peers write. SRSD significantly and meaningfully changes what students with writing problems and their peers write. Self-efficacy for writing, or belief in the self as a capable writer who will only get better, attitudes toward writing, and attributions for why I'm doing better at writing, primarily being, I know a set of strategies I can use, I have skills that I need, and I'm going to put forth the effort to use them. Those attributions for effective writing improve greatly throughout SRSD instruction, and that supports students throughout the writing process. We typically achieve short-term maintenance. Students don't forget what they've learned. Over time, they may need a booster session, and that's just normal in any learning that children do. And further, in a time when most people talk about how difficult it is to get children to generalize what they've learned in the classroom, to use it outside of the classroom with this task, to use it with that task, to get kids to generalize what they've learned. It can be hard. Yet SRSD instruction includes a gateway to generalization, as well as components to reinforce maintenance, and we get generalization as well as maintenance when it's reasonable to get it. SRSD, though, is only part of what we need to change writing achievement and writing instruction in our country. SRSD is not a total writing program. It is not a standalone. It is not a curriculum. It is an instructional approach that will make a big difference as part of the overall writing curriculum. Furthermore, don't believe what anybody tells you about SRSD being totally incompatible with Writer's Workshop, whole language, or the process approach to writing. 30 years of research shows us clearly and emphatically that that is not true. Most of our research and much of other people's research has been done in classrooms using the writing process approach, and it has integrated well into the Writer's Workshop. It has meant changes in how Writer's Workshop is perceived, but the two put together have worked beautifully. SRSD does not address many of those skills we talked about. It does not directly address handwriting, keyboarding, spelling, and grammar. Time is still needed to address all of these, but all of these should be addressed within the context of writing for meaningful purposes.